before we begin on the agenda, which is a short one, I just want to take a minute. Last week, this past week, it seems not last week, was NARUC. And I just wanted to just note my appreciation for the work that Commissioners Berman and Sayre have done at NARUC this year of two, I think, very important items. First is in terms, one of the things that NARUC does has all the states get together and they pass resolutions on matters that they believe are important to the nation, and so it has our ability to represent that can be very important. So one of the resolutions that was passed at Commissioner Berman development was about gas safety, which is of course is something that's very critical to us. And it was to make it sort of for all the states to recognize that gas safety is much more than just rule compliance, but it's really understanding and making sure that safety remains at the top of everyone's agenda, and to ensure that there is communication both across the industry, among regulators, and among the federal government and the state governments and PHMSA. So I just think that was I think that's really important, and I'm appreciative of your leadership in getting that done, because it's something that is very important to this state. The second resolution was pushed through by Commissioner Sayre, and this is related to a matter that the state worked on last year, which concerns FCC payments for CAF funding. And the issue there was simply whether or not if a particular utility, in this case for Verizon in our case, declined the funding for Lifeline, where would the monies go? Would they go back to the nation at large or to the state? And we pushed the issue here with the FCC. We worked in conjunction with the broadband office to make sure that whatever monies Verizon gave up were given back to New York, where they belonged. And Commissioner Sayre then took the issue a step further so that the FCC would do that in the case of all the states. And I think that's also important that these Lifeline monies get back to the states. So I appreciate that effort as well. Thank you. So with that, let me move on to the consent agenda. And we have, first question is, does anyone want to recuse from any items on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay. So I just want to take a minute, and I think my fellow commissioners are of similar mind. We do have an item on the consent agenda. It's item 167, which is a settlement of the Commission's review of the East Harlem gas explosion. And, I think that I can speak for everyone who's here today that our thoughts and prayers are with the families and individuals who were victims of that incident. I also know that there's really nothing we can say that can even approach their pain, and we feel that deeply, and our compassion. For us, public safety is always at the top of our priorities, as I was just saying, and we do expect our utilities to remain fully compliant with the rules and procedures that are designed to protect both the public and utility workers. We absolutely have zero tolerance at this commission for noncompliance, and we'll use our authority to protect the public and utility workers in any and to make sure that our goals are achieved. And so, what things that we do then is focus both on compliance and then on the remediation measures that are necessary. And while we always recognize that things can happen, our goal and what we want to achieve throughout with safety, particularly gas safety, is zero incidences. And so we use every opportunity we have to look at what happened, to hold utilities and their shareholders accountable, and to make sure that we continue to adopt best practices to make sure it never happens again. In this particular item, we've reached a substantial agreement on the actions that Con Ed has taken and will continue to take to remedy the failures that we found and to avoid the risk of any further such events. The settlement in dollar amounts was the largest settlement that this commission has ever accepted for gas safety violation, and it really reflects both our commitment and the company's commitment to improve gas service and to remediate for past actions without imposing any cost on consumers. So again, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims, but I believe that this settlement is the right thing to do and will help us in the future in this state. I'm happy to entertain any further comments. Commissioner Sayre?
I completely concur with the chair's comments, and I can only add my concern and sorrow for the victims of this tragedy and their families. I also reiterate that gas safety is a top priority of this commission, and we will do everything we can do to prevent further tragedies like this one from occurring. I think the settlement in front of us helps us move toward that goal, and I support it.
Commissioner Compar?
I also agree with the comments that were made today. Gas safety, as we now have a commissioner who handles the gas safety, and Commissioner Berman, has now finally reached the national scene, and it's something that's really important, and all states are looking at this. So hopefully now not only New York but other states will put this in the ladder of importance that it so richly deserves. And I would like to also extend my condolences to the families of those who lost their lives, and my thanks to all the people who work so hard, including our own staff, on the investigation to make sure that something came through that was going to be helpful, and we'll continue trying to do our best and working with the utilities to make sure that there are more safety measures in place to prevent an accident like this from happening again.
Okay. Commissioner Berman. And Commissioner Berman, if you have other comments on other matters, because I think you indicated you do, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. The integrity and reliability of our natural gas system is paramount. At the core of that is safety. There are times that we, as commissioners, may disagree. There is no disagreement here. As state regulators, we are dedicated to working together to continue to seek and improve and enhance pipeline safety. Safety is everyone's business, and we need to strive for a target of zero incident. I, too, would like to say that my heart goes out to all the families that were affected by this awful incident. I'd like to point out that today's action is about utility services and costs and does not relate to victim compensation. Individuals entitled to such compensation as a result of the incident remain free to pursue their claims and are not in any way affected or foreclosed by this settlement. As a commissioner, I am committed to the highest standards of gas safety, and I support and commend this settlement because it will contribute towards making our communities served by natural gas as safe as possible. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'm going to move to, and just hold on for. In item 265, there's a reference to case number 15E0050, which references an order for March 17th, 2016. The item on 265 is not dealing with that issue, which still has a pending petition for rehearing and was not part of the original SAPA. And I just am reflecting that I concurred on that item, and we'll be looking forward to addressing that in some future. Just wanted to make that reference. The next item is item 270. This is case number 13M0449 and deals with in the matter of focused operations audit of the internal staffing levels and the use of contractors for selected core utility functions at major New York energy utilities. I referenced that this item is helping to put forward the plans that the utilities have submitted. Following the submission of these plans, staff will be reviewing them, and then these plans will then be issued for notice and comment, and then it will come back to the commission for consideration. So we'll be addressing it at that time on the sufficiency of those plans. The next item is items 271A and 271B. I note that this is dealing with the low-income order, which I did not vote for the original low-income order. Here, we're dealing with addressing eligibility issues in the utility discount programs. I do note that I still feel strongly that my original decision on the low-income order was the proper one. But to the extent that these orders are moving forward and looking at improving the discount programs and address issues raised by the parties to ensure successful implementation, I am supportive. However, I do note that I would like to also ensure that we look at all the different items that we're doing on low income. Did someone sell? Okay. There is a report on alternative approaches to providing low and moderate income clean energy services. It was issued February 3rd, 2017. In it, there are many different recommendations that seem to touch upon many, many different proceedings and issues. And to the extent that we really do, again, get to the heart of a comprehensive look at all of these different issues, I welcome this report being brought before the Commission. And I also am concerned in making sure that we make sure in all of our different items that we are holistically looking at it from a global perspective and not just looking at it on an individual basis, and how they all affect each other is very important. With that being said, my main concern is always on the individual low-income citizen. And I do point out in item 365, where we're addressing an issue, which I understand. There was an individual who had arrears, and then she went on to public assistance. And then when she got off of public assistance, she still had these arrears, which were before she went on public assistance. So I'd like to just point out that for me, while I understand that she still is owed, or still has to pay back those arrears, it's important for us, through our consumer services and through our outreach, that we make sure that all individuals that are going through this understand what they can do if they can't pay their arrears. And what we should be doing is providing and making sure that we not just answer the appeal, but we make sure that this person has the resources, and all others who may come before us, has the resources at their fingertips, so that there is working on helping the individual low-income customer. And I know that staff is always diligent on those issues, but I do just want to reflect that I, as a commissioner, am very concerned on that.
Can I just
Yeah.
add now that, are you gonna move on to something else?
Yes.
I just want to say on 271 A and B that it just goes to prove the point that when we feel that certain parties need more clarification, that's exactly what is in this order. It clears some question marks for those who had questions when we originally did the low-income order. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
374A and 370B I'll take up at the same time. In 374A, which is dealing with Related Company and Oxford Properties on standby service rates, as well as the other one, also Related Companies and Oxford Properties. In both of these orders, we reference that while we are denying the petition, we are not precluding looking at the issue in another case. In 374A, we say that this does not preclude the development of alternative rate designs in the future that could include standby rate demand charges to campuses that are applied to coincident demands with corresponding cost allocations. And in 374B, we reference that we'll be looking at this during the second phase of the value of DER proceeding. And I just want to reflect upon the fact that for me, it's imperative that we do focus on items where we are not addressing them or we're denying in an order, but then looking at it to resolve in a future order. That there is a need for us to keep track of that. Since it's not in the ordering clauses as a tracker, we do need to be mindful that there are times that there are items in orders that may get lost if they're not in some fashion tracked specifically. So I'm just laser focused on that issue because I do know these are two important issues, not just for the petitioners in this case, but in other cases as well. So. Thank you. Otherwise, I support the item. 381A, B, and C deal with the Clean Energy Standard implementation plans. These are just dealing with the implementation plans and are not dealing with the underlying order December 2016. So to the extent that these are dealing with the implementation plan and moving forward on them and are reflective, I do point out that in the August 1st, 2016 order, I did not vote with the majority but concurred reflective of my comments at session, as well as at the December order, I did not vote with the majority but abstained. To the extent that these are just looking at the implementation of the clean energy stands and the plans, I am supportive because it is the path forward. I do want to note, though, that there remain open issues, including but not limited to existing biomass, hydropower, and other existing facilities that are still being reviewed, as well as some clarifications. And these implementation orders, since they're not dealing with those outstanding issues, we will be looking forward to dealing with them at a future time. Well, Greg and I. And then 382, I just want to note for the record that on the underlying orders, I abstained from voting, and consistent with my comments at those sessions, I will be doing the same. And then on items 461, 462, and 463, I do note that New York American Water has been actively acquiring several small water companies in New York. And this is not a bad thing. And in fact, such acquisitions may be helpful, not just to New York American Water, but to the troubled small water companies, their customers, and to the impacted communities. However, I do reference that on August 8th, 1994, in case 93W0962, the New York State Public Service Commission at that time issued a statement of policy on acquisition incentive mechanisms for small water companies. This policy was to encourage the acquisition of smaller troubled water systems by larger systems and included a number of options to provide incentives for such acquisitions. The stated policy of consolidating where appropriate, the industry had the goal of thereby achieving safe, adequate, and reasonably priced water service for the long term. Then on December 17, 2015, this commission commenced a generic proceeding in case 15W0562 to review this policy and look at the landscape of what is happening in this area. This both the policy, the existing policy, as well as that December 17, 2015 proceeding were referenced in all three of these. The final decision we make in that generic proceeding can have a significant impact on how we move forward on such acquisitions and provide consistency in achieving our policy objectives and impact positively our actual water systems. Normally, I would not want to decide this type of specific proceeding while we're still examining that policy in the ongoing 2015 generic proceeding. However, I am cognizant that here we do have a need to ensure safe and adequate service and the long-term viability of the source supply of the water systems. So therefore, I approve these three items, but I do reference that I want to be kept informed on the water system and the status and on the immediate and long-term infrastructure issues. And I do look forward to resolution of the ongoing generic proceeding. And that's it.
Thank you. May I just two quick points. One is I just concur with Commissioner Akampora's observation that the work of our gas safety staff is excellent, and see you guys sort of sitting back there. So, but there's no question that your diligence and your working so closely and so quickly was very, very helpful, both to this commission as well as the federal government. So, thank you very much. And then also on the low income, in addition to clarifying, we've actually also responded to a request that we expand the program to address an issue associated with the HEAP payments in New York City. So I'm mindful of the fact that, just as Commissioner Akampora always reminds us, that we also are not perfect. And when we do make errors and we need to adjust to reflect concerns, we should be prepared to do so, and we're doing so in this case. So with that, let me move to the consent agenda vote, and all those in favor of the recommendations, please indicate by saying aye.
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 I accept to the extent that I reference my comments.
Okay. And with your comments and there being no opposition, the recommendations are adopted. Thank you. So we have another matter in front of us today before we close, which is a resolution for Commissioner Akampora. And before I proceed with the resolution, and also I know that my fellow commissioners also want to make comments, I do want to make a few comments myself. So, Pat, we've been talking about this for a few days now, but just for those who aren't aware, but Pat has been in service for New York in various positions for 34 years, and for many of us, she really exemplifies what public service is all about. For 12 years, and we've discovered this, Pat seems to have an affinity for the number 12. She served as the Assemblywoman representing the 1st District of Long Island, and for 12 years she's been at this commission, including her position as chair. She also has more experience than many of us in working for governors, having served under 4 governors and done so very, very well. And so, I started to think about all of the attributes that you bring to public service. And since you like the number 12, I narrowed myself to 12. So I'd like to go through them now because I think it's important. So one is her recognition of the role of staff. I mean, we talk about this a lot, but we couldn't do anything at this commission without staff. And one of the things that I've learned, and Pat exemplifies, is a recognition that the people who work for you are your biggest assets, and that your job as a leader is really to help cultivate people, develop people, give them opportunities, give them honest feedback, and make them do better at what they do every day. And Pat has been wonderful, and I've had, just listening to the people who've worked for her, with her, and what you've done to really develop careers. And many people sitting in this room owe their career to Pat. And it's because she recognizes talent, and she develops talent, and she rewards talent, and she helps talent become better. So I appreciate that. The second is her continued and fidelity to recognize that a good part of what we're doing is in protection of the consumers of the services, and her focus on consumer service. And one of the things that Pat has always done and always does is always look at the consumer position. She's been a huge advocate of the consumer services division, recognition that, while many of us toil over investigations, over testimony, over orders, it's our consumer services division who really are the feet on the street for us, the people who really talk to the public and really listen to the public, and really just in that many ways their job is the hardest because they have to deal with people having real issues, and that's, as anyone who's been in that position knows, it's not an easy task. The third is in water advocacy. Pat has been a leader both in New York as well as in the nation in terms of water rate cases, what stands for Quality Water Company, and certainly in these times, we often spend a lot of time talking about electric and gas and communications. We're not, even though New York isn't a significant case in terms of water utilities, we've become a leader in the regulation of water companies, and that owes it to Pat. The other is in geothermal development, which Pat recognized early on the huge opportunity the state has around geothermal, and has been pushing this issue and has worked with me to make me understand it. And now I think we are at the cusp of really seeing strong geothermal development in New York, which I believe will be hugely valuable both in meeting our clean energy goals and also our goals to having low-cost heating for consumers. So I think that's another great legacy you're going to be leaving. Other things that are apparent to many of us is her advocacy for women. If you look at Pat's history, both at the legislature and at the commission, she's been a huge advocate for women professionals long before people were recognizing the need to have women in leaderships. Pat was an early person on the battlegrounds for that, and that's something I don't think people understand about you. Her wisdom, which is number 6 for those who are trying to keep track. I'm wondering when I'm going to be done, but it's not. I think we could spend the afternoon. Pat's been is extremely has been for me a go-to person for challenging issues and for being able to get to the heart of issues and really kind of keeping us balanced. And that also is number 7, her leadership. There's people who lead loudly, and there are people who lead quietly and are effective at that. And Pat sort of is one of those great people who is able to have a huge amount of influence because of the fact that she is able to help identify why we should do things, how we should do it, and do it in a way that people can agree to, as well as her integrity, which is number 8. Pat said something last night when we were having dinner with her, that when she came to the commission, she realized she needed to keep politics behind her because as a body, our job is really our statutory responsibility, and we need to maintain our integrity about finding the right decisions rather than the politically expedient decisions. I take that to heart, and I really appreciate that, and I think everyone has seen that from Pat. Her humor, she's very funny. It's that Long Island sarcastic humor that I love, as well as her sartorial excellence, and the fact that Pat has taught us all that we need to maintain a balanced life. And so her relationship to Alan, her commitment to her children, her grandchildren who love her and adore her, to tell us that she's a real person. And lastly, but not least, her provision of chocolate to whomever might step by her office. So we're going to miss you very much. Pat has always said that for people who retire, we hope that you have many checks in front of you, and we hope you have many checks in front of you and I also hope that you have great pleasure, long life, health, and enjoyment. So thank you, and I'm going to miss you terribly. Mr. Sayre?
Commissioner Acampora, Pat, has been for me a great mentor and a great example of what a commissioner should be. She brings a strong dose of common sense to this agency, something that is sometimes missing, but she makes sure that it's put forward properly. And as the chair says, she has been the strong voice of the consumer at this agency. She's a very effective commissioner. There are quite a few things that have happened around here that maybe nobody's noticed, but otherwise, without her, they would not have come out right. I'm going to miss you enormously, and I wish there was some way. Oh, well, my first phone call will be come back to the board for the next 6 years. So you have my warmest thanks and my heartiest best wishes.
So I had comments, but then I got thrown when Audrey said that she appreciated your sarcastic humor because you're from Long Island. I'm from Long Island.
And I appreciate your humor, too.
If I had known that. Everyone who meets Pat realizes right away how passionate she is about protecting consumers. I am truly fortunate in being able to say that I have known Pat for a very long time. I was a staffer under her when she was a commissioner, and I was a staffer under her when she was interim chair. And I can truly say she's a friend, she's a mentor, and she was and will always be a great colleague. Her stories on Long Island life are truly legendary, and I can vouch for it, being a Long Islander, and they were probably saltier than she let on, too, because I'm from Long Island. I will miss sharing both regulatory perspectives and all perspectives with her. She really helped me many times as a young mother and gave me perspective on work life and personal life balance. So thank you. You will be missed.
So I have two resolutions. One, we're going to, I think, incorporate by reference. It's a resolution from NARUC board that they passed this week, and among other things, though, it recognizes the leadership that you've had as at NARUC as a long-standing member of the Committee for Consumer Affairs and the Committee on Water, as well as your work on MACROC. But it's the body's appreciation for your service both to New York and to the nation at large at NARUC. And then we have a resolution as well from this commission, which I will read because I'd like to get it into the record. So whereas Patricia Acampora has served the citizens of the state of New York as commissioner since June 16th, 2005, and as chair from December 1st, 2006 through January 2nd, 2008 with great distinction. And whereas as the consummate public servant, Commissioner Acampora's dedication to the people of the state of New York spans 34 years, including serving for 12 years at the New York State Legislature as the Assemblywoman representing the 1st Assembly District on Long Island, during which time she was a ranking member of the Labor Committee and a member of several other committees, including the Consumer Affairs and Protection Committee. And whereas Chair Acampora's leadership is reflected in the over 800 orders issued during her tenure. That seems small. I think it was 800 this year, including items initiating the energy efficiency portfolio standard and revenue decoupling, establishing a long-range electric resource plan and infrastructure planning process, reviving the utility management and operations audit process, and reviewing the acquisition of Keyspan by National Grid, as well as overseeing prudence investigations of the Long Island City power outage and the steam pipe rupture in New York City. And whereas, as commissioner, she participated in an additional 7,740 commission orders, there you go, where she brought her knowledge, insight, and guidance to bear, always insisted on a high level of customer service for all utility customers, and was cognizant of the evolving nature of regulation and the need to be flexible in order to respond to the needs of residential and business customers while balancing the responsibilities and requirements of regulated companies. And whereas Commissioner Acampora appreciated the gravity of the decisions of the Commission on the financial health of companies by regularly inquiring how the street would consider a Commission decision. And whereas Commissioner Acampora shared her wisdom with others in the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners through membership in its Committee on Consumer Affairs and Committee on Water, and as a member of the board and secretary-treasurer of the Mid-Atlantic Conference of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, and as chair of its Committee on Water on the Board of Women of Communications and in Communications and Energy. And whereas Commissioner Acampora is a national leader and steadfast advocate for low-income consumers, supporting increased funding of programs that promote affordability of essential utility services and assisting other states in the enrollment of eligible customers for the Lifeline program. And whereas Commissioner Acampora has been a champion and ardent supporter of all staff of the Department of Public Service, providing guidance and support, taking fair and decisive actions, encouraging diversity among leadership and offices, making time to connect with and inspire department employees, and always expressing her deep appreciation publicly and privately for staff's work. And whereas she will now have more time to travel and be with her family, to which she is devoted, including Alan, her husband, her daughter and stepdaughters, 5 grandchildren, and collect many retirement checks. It is resolved that the New York State Public Service Commission expresses its deepest appreciation to Patricia L. Acampora for her leadership as a member of the Public Service Commission and her faithful service to the citizens of the state of New York, as demonstrated by her unwavering commitment to the mission of the Commission to ensure safe, secure, and reliable access to electric, gas, steam, telecommunications, and water services for all of New York's residential and business consumers. At this session of the Public Service Commission, February 16, 2017. Thank you, Pat. And I bought a drink.
Well, this is finally it. You know, we've done this for a lot of people, and I've sat here and I stood up and I clapped, and I knew this day would finally come. And, you know, I'm ready for it. I really am. This has been 12 years of a great run. It really has. And I've had the honor to work with talented, smart, and dedicated professionals right here in this agency. And I always thought that every job I had was the best job. I thought when I was a legislator, it couldn't get any better. And then I came here, and this is where I found this was the best job I've ever had. You almost didn't have to pay me to do it. But the travel was a bit tough, I have to admit.
They almost didn't pay me.
Well, that's true. We still fight about the travel stuff, but we'll overlook that. That's not within the agency. There have been so many wonderful accomplishments that have been done during the 12 years that I've been here. And the work that goes into doing what is done here, I don't think anybody outside of this agency realizes, because when you say the Department of Public Service, the Public Service Commission, people have no idea what that entails. Just the small group of us we know what it does, and you know how hard you work. And I talk about that all the time when, I talk to some of the people in the halls and on the elevator and in the city, or I go in the back every day that I'm there. And they're all working hard for the people of New York State. And I don't know how much luckier people can be about that. And Audrey had mentioned my love of consumer affairs. Really, those people, boots on the ground, and when someone's calling, they are not happy. And trying to take a phone call with someone who is not in a nice mood and trying to keep them calm while gathering the information. But as has been a regular occurrence, and whoever was running the Office of Consumer Services does share with the commissioners a lot of the thank yous that come in. And so that that being on that phone, and when a new commissioner comes in, and I think you've all done it, you've sat in that call center and you listen to what happens. And so to me, that has always been the thermometer of how, as a commissioner, you can gauge where are areas you need to concentrate more, particularly when a rate case comes along and a certain utility might have not been doing what they're supposed to do, and we've been taking the brunt of their consumer calls because they have not been up to par. And that's something we can accomplish. And thanks to the utilities, they always have taken our suggestions in the correct manner, not as a criticism, but as a way, again, to make sure New Yorkers are best served. And I have served under 4 governors, and it's always been a pleasure. And that's why I said last evening when we were out, politics, don't come here. Who cares? And it's something I used to say in the legislature. When we all go, nobody has on their tombstone or whatever plaque they may choose to have, or their little jar. It doesn't have your name, and it doesn't have R, D, C, I, or whatever else there is. So we do this job just thinking about what is right for the people and what is right for the businesses of our state, because that's something that's really important to us. And so I thank each and every person who has interacted with me over the years. You've all been great, again, true professionals, always willing to educate a commissioner, because when we come in here, we really don't have a blueprint, and there's a lot to learn. And I think now, after 12 years, I finally got it. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all this information, but I'm happy to share with anybody. And I really appreciate all the kindnesses over the years on everyone's behalf and trying to help me be a better commissioner. So to you all, I will miss all of you. But I will look forward to it's another step in life. And believe me, I won't be sitting still long. As many of you know me, I like to go. I may not be traveling 6 hours on the railroad to get to my office in the city, or 4.5 hours to come up to Albany, but I'll sure be doing something, and it will have something to do with trying to make things better for the public at large. So I thank you all. It's been a great send-off, and I really appreciate all the love that I've received over 12 years. So God bless you all. It's been an honor.
Thank you, Pat.
And let me say one more thing, because I won't be here for the March meeting, and someone else will be leaving. And I have to thank Audrey for all her help and assistance in really pushing my GEO project. I mean, without this lady's leadership, and she really has put New York on the map again. For so many years, New York wasn't on the map in much of anything when you went to NARUC and MACRUC, but through Audrey's leadership, she really has spurred an interest through REV about what is New York doing. And so to Audrey and to Richard Kaufman and to the governor for showing that New York can still lead, I think that's something I don't want to not be in the record. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's very nice. Now, just one tip. When you're in Florida and you want to make new friends, don't talk to them about whether they like DCF analysis or anything like that. So, well, thank you, Pat. We are going to miss you greatly. With that, Secretary Burgess, is there anything else in front of us today?
There's nothing else in front of us, but if I can just ask one clarifying question of Commissioner Berman for her voting, because I wasn't clear from the record. Were you voting aye on all matters with additional comments?
No.
With a two abstention on 382, is that correct?
Yes.
And the other abstention was?
I have to look at the item number.
381, CES?
381 A, B, and C.
Thank you. And one more. Commissioner Berman, thank you for taking care of the resolutions at NARUC. Appreciate that.
And the rest were all ayes. Thank you.
Good. Good. Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.